Well, I'm pretty bored. Guess I'll go find something to do a video on. Wonder what I'll do a video on this time. Let's see. How strong is the MCU Thor? Something on Zoom? No. Marvel apparently uploaded something cool. Wonder what it is.
I will dream about you. It's always you.
What the fuck? That's right guys, the first ever trailer for Marvel's upcoming Avengers sequel dropped earlier, and holy shit, it is awesome! I mean, yeah, the trailer doesn't exactly give away a whole lot, and if you remember what all happened with the marketing leading up to Infinity War, then what all we get in this trailer should be kinda suspect at best anyway, but it was still a good trailer and it had a lot of stuff in it to talk about. So let's not waste any time here, let's see what all we can see in the first trailer for Avengers Endgame.
We're in the Endgame now.
So the trailer starts with Tony leaving a message for Pepper through his battered Iron Man armor. I'm not entirely sure how he at least has a partially working helmet, considering how Thanos ripped it to pieces during the fight on Titan, but whatever. I'm just gonna assume Tony either patched it up before he and Nebula left, or that he had just enough nanobots to form as much of a helmet as he possibly could. Speaking of Nebula, there's a couple shots in the trailer that make it seem like both she and Tony got off Titan using the Guardian ship, the Benatar. There's a couple shots of Tony in the ship, some where he's recording his message to Pepper, others where he's looking out into space, and this one, where Nebula seemingly puts her hand on Tony's shoulder for a little bit. Either way, this shot at least confirms what all we heard from Nebula's actress, Karen Gillan, during an interview with Fandango a few months ago, when she claimed that Nebula would have a new friend in the movie.
I know who her new BFF is, and I can't tell you. I can't, but I promise you, it's brilliant and unexpected and just so good.
Since there's really nobody else out in space, well, almost, but we'll get back to this one in a little bit. It makes sense that she and Tony would have formed some kind of bond when they headed off for Earth. Of course, I'm assuming that bond's only gonna last for so long, since Tony mentions in a voiceover that food, water, and oxygen are all running out, and that it's highly unlikely that he'll be able to make it back to Earth.
Just for the record, being adrift in space with zero promise of rescue is more fun than it sounds. Food and water ran out 4 days ago. Oxygen will run out tomorrow morning.
Jeez, could you imagine after everything Tony's been through in these movies, fighting aliens, making an evil robot, going toe-to-toe with an intergalactic warlord, that the one thing that ends up finally killing him is just dying out in some random part of space? That would suck. Thankfully though, there are a couple ways Tony and Nebula could get out of this. Maybe Thor could open a portal with the Bifrost, or maybe Pepper could fly out and give him a lift since she's sporting her own armor now, or somebody like Valkyrie or Captain Marvel could bump into the both of them and bring them back to Earth. Although either one of them finding two random people in some random part of space without a beacon or something seems a little hard to believe, on top of the fact that it kinda sounds a little too similar to Thor's introduction in Infinity War, so we probably won't be seeing that one. Either way, after all the Tony stuff, we see the Marvel Studios logo turn into dust.
I see what you did there.
Followed up by this shot of a Scarecrow wearing Thanos' armor. If you remember your comic history, then you might remember the ending of the Infinity Gauntlet story, where Thanos retired to a farm out in the middle of nowhere and propped his armor up on a Scarecrow in his field. Of course, MCU fans should also have noticed this towards the end of Infinity War. You can see the Scarecrow right about here, where Thanos is walking out of his hut. Speaking of Farmer Thanos, we also get this shot of the Mad Titan walking through his field, gladiator style, while wearing the Infinity Gauntlet. I do think it's kinda interesting that Thanos apparently chose to leave the gauntlet as it is after Infinity War, all charred and mangled and stuff, rather than patch it up and make it look new. I mean, we know he can still use it, so it's not like he needs to fix it, but still, if you can, why wouldn't you? Moving on, we get a look at the outside of Avengers HQ as we hear Black Widow talk about Thanos and how he did exactly what he said he was gonna do.
Thanos did exactly what he said he was going to do. He wiped out 50% of all living creatures.
Now there are a couple things to talk about here. The voiceover from Natasha and Steve doesn't really make a whole lot of sense if they're just talking to each other about the decimation. Don't forget, that's just how the MCU is referring to the snapping. So I'm assuming that they're explaining what all happened with Thanos and the battle in Wakanda to somebody else. Maybe somebody who's been gone for a while and had no clue what was happening maybe, but we'll come back to that one. The other thing I want to point out is, take a look at how Avengers HQ looks, especially compared to how it looked in earlier MCU movies. I mean, the area looks unkempt, the trees look look like they've been dying or something, and there's some kind of dirt and grime and stuff on most of these buildings. I'm not gonna lie, it looks kinda gross. If nothing else, this should be another reminder that Earth has had to limp along for a few years after Thanos came along. Oh yeah, and we also get a quick look at Cap crying for some reason. Probably thinking about all the people that disappeared during the decimation, like Bucky and Sam. Speaking of missing people, there's also this shot of Bruce looking at holograms of Scott Lang, Peter Parker, and interestingly, Shuri. Yeah, apparently Shuri got snapped. And I know some of you guys out there are like, but Shuri can't be dead. I remember hearing a while ago that she lived through Infinity War. And that's true, Angela Bassett did say in a talk with Screen Rant back in July that she thinks Shuri didn't get dusted. But at the same time, the Russos gave an official list of a few other MCU characters, like Howard the Duck and Sif, and whether or not they survived the snap. You know what Shuri got? An unknown status. I mean, even without this shot, just thinking about whether or not Shuri lived after Infinity War and the only answer you have is unknown, that sounds super ominous. I mean, even if she did live, how could you not know? The snap happened in Wakanda. Tons of Avengers were there. If Shuri lived, then where'd she go? Anyways, after a shot of the interior of Avengers HQ, we get a quick look at Thor sitting somewhere in street clothes, followed up by our first look at Hawkeye as Ronin.
Holy shit.
Fuck yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Look at that costume, it just looks so badass. And apparently he's been busy after the decimation, judging from those dead guys lying there on the ground. Honestly, I think this part's really interesting, considering how there was a rumor a while back that claimed that we'd be seeing Ronin in Japan hunting Yakuza who could possibly be Skrulls. I guess this is to show off some of the ones that survived the events of Captain Marvel and went into hiding afterwards, and this shot could be proof of that. Plus, we get this narration from Cap going on at the same time, talking about losing friends and family, essentially confirming that Hawkeye's family got dusted in the snap. It kinda reminds me of that part in Ultimates 2 number 10 when we saw Hawkeye, after getting captured and finding out his family was murdered, literally rip his own fingernails off and kill a bunch of people with them. Seriously, I hope we get a version of that scene in this movie. That would be awesome. Speaking of costumes though, we can see here that Cap's wearing that stealth suit from the Winter Soldier movie. It's pretty cool that he decided to put that one back on again. There's also a bit of conversation between Steve and Natasha in this part, talking about whatever the plan is to beat Thanos. Now, obviously we don't know exactly what that plan is, but it does seem like it'll have something to do with time travel, especially because of the last scene in the trailer, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Afterwards though, we finally get to see the movie's official title, that being Avengers Endgame. Oh, really? I mean, it's not a bad title or anything, but I thought it was officially confirmed that the title wouldn't have anything to do with Endgame or anything said during Infinity War.
We're in the endgame now.
To be fair though, we were trying to believe the same people who made sure we couldn't see Spider-Man in the Civil War trailer and kept including that big group running shot in Wakanda in the Infinity War trailers, so our bad I guess. But easily one of the coolest parts of the trailer was what we got to see at the end, when Scott showed up at Avengers HQ. Now this is what I was talking about earlier, about the movie involving time travel to some degree. Like, most people already guessed that this was going to be a thing when we got those on-set photos and saw that they were recreating the Battle of New York, and then we got that line about time vortexes from Janet in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
And don't get sucked into a time vortex. We won't be able to save you.
Now, I already guessed that this was going to be a thing after seeing that movie, but now that I've seen this trailer, I'm positive that this is how Scott gets out of the quantum realm, and how the rest of the Avengers start to put together their plan to beat Thanos. I mean, come on, Scott shows up at Avengers HQ talking about the airport fight in Civil War and all that, in archived footage? Seriously, how else could Scott know about that fight and show up in some super old footage unless he was using the quantum realm to travel around through time like some kind of tiny Doc Brown? Now, the real question is, how did he get that van to travel back in time with him? It's not like it can fit into that tiny portal to the quantum realm. Did he steal it? Shrink it and bring it along? Then what about the portal? Ah well, I guess we'll figure it out as we get closer to that May release date. But anyways guys, that's everything I was able to find in the first ever trailer for Avengers Endgame. If you guys agreed with anything I said in this video, or if you have your own thoughts you want to throw out there, then go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, then go ahead and click that like button, and if you're new, maybe consider clicking that subscribe button too. I've also got links to my Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and Patreon in the description. You should probably check those out too. And if you want to see more of my content, then you can click the link to my last video. It's right there in the middle of your screen. Alright, and I will see you all next time.